And you can pretty much do it
Dozier and Maz.
in perpetuity.
Yep. The Sports Hub.
But in the end, Jaylen Brown, be careful what you wish for. You really want me to start reporting on that level? You understand? Locker room? How the organization might think about you? How the city may feel about you? How Jason Tatum may or may not have feel about you? Sneaker deals, endorsement deals, the list goes on and on. The season is over, bro. You on Twitch trying to do what I do and talking about me needing to step away. It makes no sense. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm simply making the point that it is not wise after 24 hours of having your season over in the first round for you to be coming out talking about that's your favorite season. It ain't the smartest thing in the world to do.
Chris Gasper is still brought to you by our friends at Premier Basement Waterproofing. Memorial Day means summer is here, so call our guys at Premier, third generation, family owned by the Albert family, and they've got you covered with waterproofing for summer storms and the Santa Fe dehumidifier that you need for your basement or crawl space this summer. So to schedule with Grace, both your attitude and the gal on the phone, Grace Albert, call 844-LIVE-DRY or visit premierbasement.net. And then at what point, what is it?
Game over for water.
Gasper via Zoom. How you doing, Christopher?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Chris.
Okay, so let's get into Celtics, starting with the point being Jaylen Brown and Stephen A. and that back and forth. And the first thing I want to ask, because you always have good insight on Jaylen Brown, do you think that was, well, do you think that Stephen A. actually has something when he says, do you really want me, careful what you wish for, do you really want me reporting out how the locker room feels about you, how the organization feels about you, how Tatum feels about you? Do you think Stephen A. has something on how those or what those things feel about Jaylen Brown, or he's just saying you don't want me to start digging and that? Do you as an empty threat, or do you think there's a story there that he has?
I think he probably has some rumors and stuff that he's heard that he would have to then be able to go and verify. I don't know what Stephen A.'s vetting process is these days. He was once a great NBA reporter. I don't know how much of that he still does. I do remember one time, and I think this is real. People forget this. The real genesis of this Stephen A. thing is not what Jaylen Brown said on Twitch after the Celtics were eliminated by the Sixers. It was a few years ago when they were on First Take. He wasn't on, but Stephen A. was on, and they were talking about Jaylen Brown, and I believe they were talking about his role in the Players Association and also talking about endorsements. For some reason, Stephen A. seems to be really hopped up on endorsements as a measure of a player. I don't really get that, but he seems to be really hopped up on that. And so he got a text, if you remember, or something on the air. He looked at his phone and then read it. And it was basically, I'm paraphrasing, somebody saying like, Jaylen Brown doesn't get endorsements because, people don't like him.
Right, he's not likable. Yeah,
he's not likable. And he read that, like literally it hit his phone, and then he read it on the air. No, doesn't say who the source is, didn't verify it, didn't get a second source, just kind of said that on the air. And I think that's sort of what rubs Jaylen Brown the wrong way about Stephen A. is when he did that, right off the rip and, just sort of right from that point threw some shade at Jaylen just based off of what somebody said on his phone.
Okay, so where do you think Jaylen Brown stands with the organization?
I don't really think it's any different than what it was through the course of the season in terms of if they want to do what they've done in the past, which is dangle him, potentially move on from him, then that's what they're going to do. And he's been through that before. I don't think he's asking out if that's what you're asking me. I don't think this is a guy who's banging the drum to get out of town. I don't truly believe that's what he wants. I think he wants to be here. He knows his best chance of winning is here, so that makes a lot of sense. To go back to your original question, I would just say if Stephen A. Smith has information about the relationship between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, about how the Celtics feel about Jaylen Brown, the endorsement stuff to me is just dumb. I don't get that, but whatever. If you're into that, great, good for you. But the other stuff, then he should report it. He should not as a threat to Jaylen Brown. He should be reporting it as a media member because it's interesting and it can, I think, be a situation where he elucidates a lot of us on what's going on and maybe knows things we don't. He should just report it. And Nick Wright said this. Michael Hawley said this. If you have information, why are you saving it to use like a mob boss because someone's pissed you off? That's not how journalism works.
Okay, Chris, how do you feel Jaylen Brown's being treated locally? And then tell me what you think the Celtics should be doing this offseason.
Yeah, sure. So I would say I think Jaylen Brown, the more I think about this, is a victim of what I would call the Tommy Point effect, which is that Celtics fans have sort of been conditioned that the players they should embrace the most, the players that matter the most, what defines their team, the team's culture, and all this stuff is not who the best players are or just who the best players are. It's glorifying these role guys. And they're high-end role guys, too. It's not like they're like regular. I'm not talking about Luke Cornett, although he was crazy glorified here. I'm talking about guys like Marcus Smart and Derek White, guys you could look at and make a case are, borderline all-star players, but they're role players. You're never going to win if those guys are your best players. You're never going to win if those guys are your second best players. They're not as good as a Jaylen Brown. If you put them in the second best role, you're not going to win a damn thing. But the Celtics fans have been sort of conditioned and fallen into this trap with the whole Tommy Point thing, that those are the guys that matter. Those are the guys you should be rooting for. Those are the guys you can't trade off the team. And I think that Jaylen Brown ends up getting sort of punished for that. That's not the only reason. I think he's too outspoken for a lot of people, and people don't like that. I think people just want him to sort of just play, and that's not the type of guy he is. He's always a guy who's going to look at and say there's an intersection between society and sports, an intersection between politics and sports, but a lot of people don't like that, so that rubs them the wrong way to begin with. And the whole situation, again, with this Tommy Point thing is the biggest reason in my mind why I haven't heard a peep. Maybe I'm wrong, and you guys, I haven't heard one person say this team should explore trading Derek White, who had a horrific series and is one of the biggest reasons you lost the series in terms of underperforming relative to what he's supposed to do for the team and even what he did for during the regular season. Even though he didn't shoot well in the regular season, he gave you one half of competent offensive basketball in 7 games. One half. Not even all game 7, because he was 3 of 13 in the second half of game 7. He is going to be 32 years old on July the 2nd. He makes $30 million. I like the player. I like him. But if you want to talk about shaking up the team and you don't think the current composition of the team is good enough, wouldn't you start there maybe? But I haven't heard one word, because he's a Boston basketball binky for the Tommy Point crowd, and they can't even imagine having to trade him, because who's gonna run around and block somebody else's shot as a guard? Ugo can do it, but that's okay. But who's going to run around and do that? And who's going to get these offensive rebounds and do these other things? And it doesn't matter to them that literally at points during the Philadelphia series, and this is not my opinion, the announcers were actually saying during some of those games in Philly, the Sixers are daring him to shoot. Daring him to shoot.
Chris, just quickly to follow up on that, would Jason Tatum, 2 parts, okay? Would Jason Tatum allow them to trade Derek White, number 1? And 2, is Derek White good enough to get them a big man?
I'll start with 2. I think Derek White would be good enough to get them a big man. I would explore moving him for a legit big and a young guard, not because he's not good, but just to redistribute your roster resources, and because you had Peyton Pritchard emerge, and because I think you have some other energy guys like Ugo and Jordan Walsh who can pick up some of the defensive slack. They're not going to be Derek White defensively off the jump, but if your roster is overall more balanced with a legit big, I think you're a better team overall. To answer your first question, no, I don't think that Tatum would be in favor of that. But my question would be, if I'm the Celtics and we have a deal where we think we can make the team better, is, well, what do you care about? And this would go back to the main point of this all. Would anybody criticize Jason Tatum if he squashed this deal, even though it could make the team better? What do you care about more, playing with your friends or winning?
Oh, we would criticize Tatum for it.
Of course. But you think the bulk of Celtics Nation is sort of lined up against Brown when it comes to this thing, don't you, Chris?
I don't know if the bulk of it is lined up against Brown. I just think he's an easier target than some of these other guys, and I don't think he's fully appreciated. He certainly has his fans in Celtic Nation, but I think it's easier for them to embrace a Marcus Smart or a Derek White below Tatum, right? Because Tatum's the guy. Tatum's one. I mean, that's so clearly established in Celtics fandom that, hey, like, Tatum's the guy. And Beadle said it the other day, and I give him credit for this. He said, look, the reason there's a different standard for Tatum versus Brown is because Tatum's a better player. As long as you say that, you're honest about it, I'm cool with that. If you're saying, like, hey, I think this guy's on another level, so I'm going to give him a pass on stuff. But when it comes to needing a second guy to win, like who that second guy is, I don't think Jaylen Brown gets the full respect he should get as somebody who, as that other guy, helped you win a championship and is a good enough player to help you win a championship versus the Marcus Smarts and the Derek Whites. And I'll even throw Pritchard in there. Now, Pritchard had a great year. I mean, Pritchard stepped up in a way this year without Tatum that White, in my mind, did not, which is another reason I would consider dealing White, because is White going to get any better? I think you're hoping he can go back to who he was in 2025. With Tatum out, the opportunity was there for him to show you and take a major step forward, and he didn't really do that. In fact, he regressed a little bit.
Okay, finally, give me a target for you, if the big guy thing, and in or out on Giannis.
Okay, targets. I would, and I'm not saying these teams would deal these guys, but for example, a guy like Wendell Carter in Orlando, I like him, Duke guy, so automatically that might be one of the ways that you help Tatum. Hey, it's a Duke guy, so you can bring another Duke guy in. I would like him if you could make a deal. Hypothetically, it's like Derek White for Wendell Carter and like Anthony Black. I'd be down with that. If Minnesota swings and misses on major players that they want to add to their team, they could use some guard help. Would they be willing to move a guy like Naz Reid for Derek White? I'm not sure they would, but that's something I would certainly propose if I were the Celtics. So those are guys that I would be interested in. In terms of Giannis, I'll just say this on Giannis. I agree with Chris Mannix. I would be scared off by some of the soft tissue injuries, by what his age is going to be in December. The fact that he's so reliant on his athleticism that he's never developed a real jump shot. And then his whole game is getting to the rim and absorbing contact as he gets older. And I would just ask this. Let's say you don't get Giannis. Let's say he goes to the Heat, which has been a widely bandied about destination for him. And it's Giannis and Bam Adebayo down there. Is that better than Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? Because I don't think so, and I don't think it's particularly close. I think that's advantage Celtics, clearly.
Chris.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so all these names you rattled off.
Yeah.
Looking at the Western Conference Final, no matter what they could do, Giannis, Naz Reid, whoever, would it even matter?
I got what you did there, Jim.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, I don't know if Jim is alluding to this, but Chris, I'm taking, again, the Drew Carter thing notwithstanding, I'm taking Brown and Tatum over Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. I'm taking Brown and Tatum over Maxey and Joel Embiid. I'm taking, Brown and Tatum over all these other duos and all these other teams. And it hasn't been good enough. I don't know if that's what Murray's sort of driving at, but unless they change the way that they play, does it really matter?
Well, yeah, it's a good point. That they have to. When you say they, I assume you mean the Celtics as an organization, not just those two guys, right?
Right.
Yeah, I agree. That's part of it too. You want to diversify the ways that you can win. I've always felt that if you are a championship level team, a championship contender, you can win in multiple ways. You can morph into whatever team you need to be that night to win. That's not who the Celtics are, and frankly, that's not really who they've been trying to be under Joe Mazzulla. So that's an issue. But based on what we're talking about here, I would say that's all the reason more to keep the Jays intact and then try and change what's around them. Because as you rattled off all those duos in the East, if you have the best duo in the East and you can change what's around them, and you've already seen them be able to win when you put the right things around them, then I would start there as opposed to breaking up the duo. I think what Big Jim was getting at, though, is does any of it matter based on what Wemby looks like and OKC? Are you sort of just playing for second place in the NBA no matter what you do?
No, they should still be. I'm with Mike in that, their duo is better than what's in the East, and it's disappointing that they fall to teams like the Sixers and the Knicks. But I look at the Spurs and OKC, and it looks like they're playing a different sport.
No, it's fair. It's fair. It's sort of that's what I was saying about watching the Canadiens and the Sabres versus the Bruins, right? It looks like a different sport. That's a fair point. And the way Wemby's playing and what he looks like and the young talent San Antonio has around him with Stephon Castle was Rookie of the Year last year, Dylan Harper, it looks like they could be a monster team for years to come. And then, Jim, I know what a big fan you are of OKC. Can I make a quick comment, though, can I go back just quickly before we go to break about the Stephen A. Smith endorsement thing?
Please.
This is going to piss some people off, but I'm going to say this. So SGA doesn't have a lot of endorsements. He's in that terrible AT&T commercial. But you know what's interesting about it? he makes sure his teammates are in those commercials. He's always in it with his teammates. So in terms of the endorsement thing, nobody has more endorsements than Jason Tatum. Have you ever seen a teammate of Tatum's in any of these endorsements?
No, that's a really good point.
I've seen his mom and his kids.
Yeah.
Well, one teammate. It doesn't even have to be Jaylen Brown. One teammate. One.
So maybe this is what Stephen A. is getting at. When he says, how come you don't have any endorsements? Maybe it's because Jason, and he says your relationship with your teammates, your relationship with Tatum, maybe Tatum's freezing him out.
I don't think Tatum's freezing him out. I just think it goes back to and it's not in a malicious way, but Tatum in his mind, in my opinion, has a narrative about how his career is going to go. And it is a solo hero's journey. It's not about, sharing the spotlight with anybody else. It's about being that one singular guy. That's why he talks about all the individual awards he wants to win. It's the way he sort of portrays himself. Obviously, he worships Kobe. Now, he conveniently omits the fact that when Kobe won his early championships, it was Shaq and Kobe. I've never heard him mention that.
In that order.
But the reality is, he sees himself as that one singular guy. And again, I don't think it's malicious, but I think it speaks to a leadership thing. I feel this way. I honestly do. I feel like if Tatum came out and said some stuff like, hey, Stephen A., back off my boy, or came out publicly and said, I know what Jaylen meant, it wasn't a shot at me, or just went on the stream, even if he doesn't want to, or had Jaylen Brown. Isn't there, if Jason Tatum is the face of your franchise, isn't there more he can do as a leader to keep this thing together, to keep it copacetic, if that's what he wants and that's what's best for the organization? Or are you just talking about your narrative? Are you just tunnel vision, horse blinders on about your narrative and your journey?
I think that's fair. Got a break here. We come back, Gasper, with some Red Sox thoughts. We'll get to your calls as well. Don't go anywhere.
Now, more of Felger and Burrs on the Sports Hub.
They're pitching the hell out of the ball. They're playing great defense. That's why everyone's kind of looking around being like, Caleb Durbin is statistically one of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball. Why is he still out there? It's because he plays great defense. That's the answer to the question. It's not like, man, we're trotting him out there hoping that he figures it out at the plate and we really believe in the guy offensively. They probably don't, but they're looking at it as we got four of the top best ground ball pitchers in the game. And we have a third baseman that can pick it over there and is one of the best defenders at the position. So we're going to keep rolling it out there and bank on. It's almost the same philosophy as postseason baseball in a way where, sure, some of the best lineups get into October and they fizzle out like the Yankees. They always have one of the best lineups. They always hit a ton of home runs. They always score a ton of runs. Then they get to October and the swing and miss catches up and they don't make it. They make it to the World Series one time. Great. But they mostly just gas out because they don't have the pitching and defense. They bank on the homers. Well, when you're the Boston Red Sox and you have one of the worst offenses in the game and you can't hit home runs, period, and you suck at home offensively, every single night you're hoping to win by the same formula. Play great defense, get a great outing from your starter, have your back end of the bullpen guys carry the load, and then have one big swing.
Gasper, what's your thought on the current state of the team?
Well, I like the fact they've been able to turn it around a little bit. If I can just comment on that, and I have no idea if that's, Jared's honest opinion, but that sounds like something that he was told, or at least someone made the case to him. Because if you go back to last offseason, when they were talking about what the biggest thing was they learned from the playoffs, it was Craig Breslow saying that they needed more slug or more power because he said a disproportionate amount of runs in the playoffs are scored via the home run. That was their biggest takeaway from the postseason, where they lost to the Yankees, who may peter out multiple postseasons, but the Red Sox lost to them. And in 2 of those 3 games, their cleanup hitter was Romy Gonzalez. And they knew they needed to fix that. And then it wasn't until they struck out on that all of a sudden they found the religion of run prevention. So now that sounds more to me like a justification than an actual strategy. It's a justification for what they have and why they're doing it, not that it's actually the best way to play. It's sort of the only way that they're built to play. I don't really buy into that this is a team that somehow is better suited for the postseason if they make it because of how great their pitching and defense is.
It's a lie.
I would start there.
It's a lie is what it is. It's a lie. So, Mike, can I just share one little anecdote with you?
Please.
Okay,
yeah.
I know you hate story time, but years ago, I remember when we were talking about building a baseball team, and Theo Epstein, who's now obviously made himself public as a member of FSG and part of the Red Sox advisory staff, if nothing else, Theo Epstein said, you know that whole expression, pitching is everything, pitching wins? He said, we don't believe that. So he said it's not that simple. You need a lineup too because you got to be able to affect the other team's pitching. So all of a sudden now, run prevention is the way to win? That's the crap you sell your team when you can't, or your fan base, when you can't hit. It's the same crap they tried to feed when Theo was GM in 2006. And Theo knows it, and they know it, so don't let him kid you. Chris is right.
Chris, meanwhile, how do you feel about the team post-managerial change and the dynamics there?
I don't really think the team has changed. I mean, the record's better, but I thought they were sort of starting to come out of it after the 2-8 start anyways when Cora was there. I think Chad Tracy's done a nice job, but I don't think that's why they're better. It's interesting, Breslow mentioned in Baltimore when he was explaining why they ended up canning Cora, he talked about players not living up to their track record. And I think one of those players very clearly was Jarren Duran. I think it's easy now to look at it and say, wow, Jarren Duran, he's performing better. They made the managerial change. Breslow was right. That's not what it is. That's not what it is. It's the fact that he's playing consistently in the field and he's not being impacted by this island of misfit toys roster where they don't have enough guys at certain positions and have too many at other positions. So you have 5 guys for 4 spots between the 3 outfield spots and DH. And Duran wasn't doing well DHing. So since May 3rd, Duran has posted an OPS of 803 with 9 extra base hits in 16 games. Coincidentally or not, he's played in the field in every one of those games. Now, on May 4th, which that should ring a bell, Red Sox fans, because that is when Roman Anthony got hurt in Detroit. Duran started the game as DH, and he did end up homering in the 7th as DH, and then he went into the game in the 8th as a left fielder. But he's playing consistently. He's playing every day, which he wasn't doing before, and he's playing in the field every day. What do you know? All of a sudden, he looks closer to Jarren Duran. But Cora couldn't do that before when everybody was healthy because of the poor roster construction, which Breslow said he had, not poor roster construction, but the fact it was a challenging roster, he admitted to Cora. He says challenging, I would say poor roster construction. So that's what happened. That isn't Chad Tracy. That is the fact that Duran now he knows he's in the lineup every day. And he's not DHing, which a guy like, I think, Duran, who, based on how much he can get in his feelings and kind of overthink things, DH is the last thing that guy should be doing. No free time during the game, because that's going to be a problem in terms of him overthinking it and not being able to perform. So I haven't seen, I could be wrong. You guys can name a guy like Rafael is always streaky, and he was kind of a Cora guy. Now he's hitting. The guys that, to me, I think Breslow was talking about would be Durbin, who, again, and Meyer, who, by the way, don't have track records because they're so early in their careers. I thought that was kind of an absurd statement when he said that. It's, if you have this many young players, those guys don't have track records. You're talking about them not living up to your projections, which is different. But do those guys look any different to you under Chad Tracy? Marcelo Meyer and Caleb Durbin?
No.
No, of course not.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, and look, just the only other thing I'll add to that is that Duran in his career has been a guy who literally plays every day. I mean, he played 157 games as a rookie, and then he played 160, or the other way around. Played 160 his first full year in the big leagues, and then played 157 last year. You remember that whole thing? We're going to give him more time off. He played in 157 games. So I do think there's something to be said for what Chris is talking about. Just mentally, the guy likes to be on the field. Now, that said, he's performed a little bit better as a DH than he has as an outfielder this year. And he hasn't had a ton of time at DH. But I think the important thing for him is that he's got to be in the lineup.
Okay, let's get back on the clock. Here's Murray's update. We're back with more with Gasper right after this.
Boston's best sports talk. You can count on it.
2 plus 2 is a 5.
Me sento un po' pacchiato perché Roma è
I think Giannis wants to go to Boston, and I'm not sure Boston wants Giannis. And I think that's the push and pull right now.
What makes you think he wants to go to Boston?
I just think he does. I think he wants to stay in the East. And I think a certain guy in the Celtics has the same shooting coach as him. And I think there's a lot of respect for the organization. And I just think that would be a team he would be interested in. But I also think Miami is another team he'd want to go to.
Yeah.
And by the way, the league's more fun if he goes to Miami. The league's more fun if Jalen and Jason stay together next year.
Sure.
Giannis goes to Miami with Bam, and they just kind of figure it out, heat culture style, and just salvage random guys from around the league, like the Davion Mitchell types, and all of a sudden they're scary.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It would make sense. I mean, Giannis has talked before about the respect he has for Joe Mazzulla, but if I'm the Celtics, yeah, I would be leery of Giannis, especially with Jason Tatum coming off the Achilles. I mean, look, Tatum was awesome when he came back, and I know you mocked me for it. I still think it was an amazing comeback, but he ended up having a knee issue that didn't allow him to play in Game 7, whether it was the knee or the calf or whatever it was, and you don't know how it's going to look for him trying to get through an 82-game season. And then, as Chris Mannix talked about on NBC Sports Boston, being terrified of some of the soft tissue injuries for Giannis. That would be, I don't think it's fair to say it would be an injury-prone duo, but I think it would be a duo where you would have to be on high alert for being derailed by injuries. So if I'm the Celtics, and based on giving up a couple of years age-wise to bring in Giannis, and here's the other thing, Giannis, he can't shoot, which is the ironic part of the statement from Simmons, because he mentions the idea of sharing a shooting coach or a certain shooting coach. He's talking about Drew Hanlon. I don't know why he didn't just say that. That's the longtime shooting coach or skills coach for Jason Tatum. There was a story in The Athletic that talked about all his clients, and in 2024, 2025, he took on Giannis. Hanlon now is kind of like Maz and Murray. I know you'll remember this guy. I don't know if you will, Felger, but remember Tim Grover, who was Jordan's guy?
I don't.
Me either. I don't either. No,
me either.
Okay, Tim. So Hanlon's kind of like the modern day Tim Grover. He's like the trainer to the stars in the NBA. He's as good as it gets. So I'm pretty sure that's where it's coming from when he's talking about, shooting coach, shooting guy. He shares a shooting coach with the Celtic or whatever. So I think that's where this is coming from. Look, if you're Giannis, why wouldn't you want to go to the Celtics in terms of how often they're in the Eastern Conference Finals? But I would just be leery if I'm the Celtics. I'm just as great a player as he is. I'm not sure he's an upgrade in terms of a duo. Individually, he's a better player than Jaylen Brown. Okay, I will admit that. But teaming with Tatum and being a duo, I don't know if that's a better duo long-term to be successful. And the other part of it is, Felger, you saw him in Milwaukee with Damian Lillard. Like, he didn't want to be off the ball. He didn't want to change a single thing about the way he played. Now, look, neither did Damian Lillard. But the reality is you have to make some concessions when you're part of a really great superstar duo. I don't really see Giannis being willing to do that.
Nope. No, sir. He played with Middleton. Other than that, I don't know who he's really played off of well and played with well. They brought in Miles Turner for him. They brought in Lillard for him, et cetera, et cetera. And so, no, I don't think I've never seen him play well with anyone, hardly. And if you want to say Chris Middleton, I don't even know if they really sort of played off each other.
And Middleton's such a low-key, low-maintenance guy.
Yes.
And Middleton was perfect for him because Middleton was that guy that could kind of get ignored offensively for 8 minutes. And then at the end of the game, when they needed someone to bail them out, he could do it. Like when Giannis needed someone to bail him out by generating a shot or creating his own offense or hitting a deep three, Middleton would just do it, even though he really hadn't been getting the ball. And this didn't happen all the time, but I'm saying certain games, he really hadn't been having the ball funneled to him for 4 or 5 minutes.
Jack in the car has a question for Chris Gasper. Go ahead, Jack. Jack in the car. His comment line says, Gasper, what would season have been like if Brown was the one that got hurt and Tatum was the only one left? That's what his comment line says. Go ahead.
I mean, I think it would have been pretty similar. They won 56 games, right? So are we assuming that Tatum didn't have the Achilles, right? If it was the other way around?
Right. Exactly. I think that's what he said.
I think it would have been pretty similar. I don't know. I mean, I guess without hearing him, what's his point? That they would have won like 65 games? I'm a little. I think it would have been.
Don't you think that there have been sort of dueling theories out there about this? For example, Evan Turner, Mike, what was the line Evan Turner said? They finished second, they won 56 games. If it had been Brown who went down, they'd have finished first and won 60. Right? Evan Turner said something like that. I'll tell you, I start to wonder.
I don't think that.
I think they might have been worse off.
I think they would have been worse. Me too.
Yeah, and when I say that, listen, I think Tatum's the better player. Brown's the better competitor. And so in a situation like that, when you lose your best player, you don't just need someone who's talented. You need someone who has balls, who's going to say, I'm not going to let this happen. And I'm not sure Tatum's that guy.
It's hard to say. Go ahead.
Well, you want to just finish up, Chris, real quick?
Yeah, I was just going to say it would have just added to like the, list of Tatum excuses. His wrist was hurt in the NBA Finals. His ankle got hurt early in Game 7. He couldn't play in Game 7 of this series, but he was on the floor when they lost Game 2 at home, when they lost Game 5 at home, when they got smoked in Game 6 against the Sixers. He was on the floor for all of those. So not having Brown, I feel like it would have been a no-lose situation for Tatum. If the team won 56 games, people would have said, see, told you, he doesn't need this guy. If the team wasn't good, they would have said, well, what do you expect? Tatum has no one around him. That's why they won 39 games. He can't lose with Celtics fans are in this town.
Sean and Marlboro, quick, please.
Hey, so really quick on your intangibles versus size. What came to mind was Pedroia versus Isaiah Thomas Jr. for some reason. But on Mazzulla, it popped into my head the other day. Why do I feel like his coaching style would be the exact same if his backcourt was Clay and Steph Curry in their prime, or Marcus Smart and Ben Simmons? Like, I feel like that's his biggest problem is he won't adjust his style play based on his actual roster, even though that's what he says.
Chris, your thoughts on that?
He did say that he would be willing to, and he showed signs of it this year. They did adjust at times. They did. Again, I always use that line of demarcation, that game against the Jazz in early November where they were 11 of 51, I believe it was, from three-point. I mean, they did adjust. They were down. Their three-point attempts overall were down this year. For the regular season, they were about 42 a game, and then they went back up to 46 during the playoff series. And my issue with Joe on that would be, look, I understand what you're saying and the way you want to play. I understand it's a make-miss league. I understand that some of these shots are good shots, and on a given night, they don't fall. However, the problem is when he says that they're all good shots, because some of them are exactly the shots that the other team wants you to take. You're telling me that the Sixers weren't okay with the bench guys, Luka Garza and Jordan Walsh and Ron Harper Jr. and Ugo, all those guys taking all those threes that they took in Game 7? You're telling me, I believe it was 11 of the 12 shots were from three? You're saying the Sixers, those were all good shots you generated. The Sixers weren't saying, well, we have to give up something, we'll give up this. Of course not. That's wrong. I mean, and he'll even say sometimes when a team plays well against them, well, look, you have to give up something. So only the Celtics defensively have to give up something. The other team that's defending the Celtics they're not giving up anything. The Celtics are just generating. Every three-point look they generate is a great look. That's where it kind of falls apart a little bit for me. Now, at the end, after Game 7, he did say, like, hey, if I had 5 big guys, we would play differently. So I think all we can do is sort of hold him to that. But I will go back to this. And I know you remember this one, Mike, after they won the championship and he was asked about how they won, and he said, math.
Effort and math is what he and Zarens were stroking each other with after that one. Gasper, on Bill Belichick's revisionist history on the release of, or the letting go of Tom Brady. That comes your way in a long commercial-free segment next. I want to get to the gossip first.
Everything you said is right.
Felger and Maz, the Sports Zone.
We were just at the end, and honestly, like, I was happy for him that things worked out well for him in Tampa because he was with a team and he made.
Were you happy about that? When he?
Well, for him, because Tom, it wouldn't have gone well in 2020 at New England. I can guarantee you that. We put everything we had in the 19 season, including paying him, a lot of money at the end of the year without anything for it. There was no first right of refusal. There was no franchise tag or nothing. And so, we all understood that, there's a good chance that he would leave. And I think he made a great career decision, obviously. I wish we could have done more, but we went as far as we could. And look, he proved, that he could play longer than anybody and play at a higher level than anybody. And that was again, a tremendous credit to him.
I heard you guys. So two things there. I hadn't heard that clip, but I'll start with he's still butt sore about the fact that ownership took away the franchise tag on Brady, because that would have been, he would have had the hammer, and they could have just franchised him and screwed him over and brought him back for another year. So that's another buck passing thing where he's like, well, what do you expect me to do? Ownership took away the franchise tag. It's like unbelievable. But I also think that listening to Belichick and some of the other clips from this, him saying it was a good thing Brady left in 2020, it sounds a little to me like a backhanded compliment. It's kind of him saying, like, if Brady had still been on the team in 2020, he would not have been able to elevate them to contention at that stage of his career, which translates to, I was right about Tom. He was in decline, if you're Bill. And that Brady had to go to this like ready-made winner with the Buccaneers, which again is revisionist history. Now, he did give Brady more credit there than I had heard by saying that's a credit to him. But let's just go back here. Nobody thought Brady was going to this automatic contender when he went to Tampa. In fact, a lot of us thought the Buccaneers were beneath the Tom Brady brand. They had not made the playoffs since 2007. They had experienced 8 losing seasons in 9 years. So while they had some talent, I mean, this was not a juggernaut or a team that anybody thought was ready to win the Super Bowl. He went down there and changed their entire culture and their fortunes, just like he did for Belichick with the 2001 Patriots. But see, Bill can't handle that reality because that gives too much credit to Tom. So he has to absolve himself overall from blowing the Brady decision, has to absolve himself from having a bad year in 2020, which I heard a caller say this as well earlier. The roster was bad because of Bill, and it wasn't even as bad as he said. Julian Edelman was still on that team. Now, his career ended 6 games in because of the knee situation. But you know, that year, he actually set his single-game career high for receiving yards.
Yes, Seattle.
Against Seattle, correct. They still had McCourty. J.C. Jackson had 9 interceptions that year or something like that. You still had Steph Gilmore. It wasn't a great team.
Chris, they were 7-9. They were 7-9 with Cam Newton, and they had a top 10 defense. So
and there were people,
don't think putting Tom Brady into that gives you playoff contention at least?
Yeah, and there were people who thought if they had given Brian Hoyer more run, they would have been 10-6 and won the division. So it's just a situation where if you sorry, Felgy, I had to get that one.
It's okay. No, it's been a while. It's been like 2 weeks since you've done it. But
yeah. It's been like, I'd say it's been like 6 weeks. So I had to get that one in there. So again, it's just him totally absolving himself. And I just want to say this one too, because I know you guys had a big bite at the apple. I happened to be in the car listening when you guys were talking about this. Okay, so even if everything Bill says is right, even if he doesn't want to point it out in terms of himself or point the finger at himself for his GMing, putting them in that position, what happened to what he told Kraft when they let Brady go, which was essentially that Brady was washed and that he, the great Bill Belichick, could win with any of the top 15 quarterbacks. And that's not just about 2020. That's about sort of the whole span of those 4 years without Brady. What happened to that? Is he changing his story on that? Because he sounds like a completely different guy, basically saying the die was cast for 2020. There was nothing anybody could do. That's not what he told ownership.
Why is it so hard to say we probably should have kept him? Well, I mean, it's so obvious. History has given us the answer. Say no one to hold against Bill, but he's just so insecure, insensitive. He just can't state the obvious. We probably should have kept him. You know who else wants a bite at this apple? Our buddy, and I put that in air quotes, buddy, Bob in Easton. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, Bobby!
Elucidate. Could you use that in a sentence?
You know what?
Felger and Maz's obvious agenda towards Bill Belichick really helped to elucidate their fraudulence. Guys, this did you like that, Gasper?
I did. That was pretty good.
All right, listen. This is what drives me up the wall. So Belichick comes out, okay, he reveals things. When it comes to like the Jordan stuff and all that, all bets are off. But when it comes to football stuff, one itch that I have to scratch, Maz, shut up about nobody being drafted from North Carolina, because 9 other Division I teams had nobody drafted, like Wisconsin, Purdue, Oklahoma State, Colorado. So enough with that.
Okay,
those schools suck too.
They all suck.
Yeah, exactly. North Carolina
they didn't
was
say
one
that.
of them.
None of those schools said they were going to be the 33rd team, though.
Yeah,
but again, but use that for your agenda. But here's my point. So This is one thing that we always leave out when it comes to the Brady thing. Belichick drafted Garoppolo because, and Brady, were we wrong about Brady? Yeah, everybody was wrong. Nobody knew that Brady was going to be Brady after that. But he had Garoppolo. That was his backup plan. That was his continuing plan. But what happened? Kraft said, nope, trade him. So Belichick traded him. And then what happened? So, I mean, he's being honest. 2020, they wouldn't have been good. I mean, I don't think he's absolving himself. I think he's being honest. And when he's finally being honest, you guys are crushing him.
He's not being honest. An honest answer would be, we probably should have kept him.
Because Belichick and honesty are two words that don't go together. It's like nuts and gum. Like, oh, he's just being honest. Please.
It wouldn't have gone well here, believe me. They got to 7 wins with Cam Newton and my guy Brian Hoyer. And COVID and guys missing games and all of that. If Brady were here, Brady didn't get rung up on the COVID thing. He went to Tampa and did everything he needed to do to stay on the field every week, unless I'm forgetting something.
No.
Right? He didn't miss any games.
He went out and got himself a fake Vax card.
Right, whatever it took. Brady made sure he was on the field producing in that COVID year. Cam Newton didn't do that. If Brady were here, he wouldn't have missed any games. He would have done what it took to stay on the field. And they would have won a hell of a lot more than 7 games with a top 10 defense. They would have contended for I looked it up. The 11-5 was the wild card. So would they have gotten to 11? They would have been into the final week. I'll give you that. I'll tell you that. They would have been a 10-11 win team with Tom Brady. They would have been at least that, like they always were with him. And Bill's just, again, cannot take any responsibility for what happened and what went wrong. As usual, Chris, final word.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and so to Bob's point, like he is taking some responsibility, but he can never take it directly. There's always like an and but. There's always a caveat, a qualifier that it's somebody else's fault or that he was put in a no-win situation. And just quickly on the Garoppolo thing, yeah, fine. So eventually they had to deal Garoppolo. But you know why Garoppolo went to San Francisco? Because that was the place that Bill thought that he could prove the ownership and other people wrong the most. Like, look how good this guy's going to be. That wasn't even the best deal for the team. The team could have gotten a better deal than the deal they got from the 49ers. I mean, that was the ultimate Bill putting him his interest ahead of the team's interest. So you can talk about Garoppolo all you want, but when you look at that, did he make the best deal that was available, the deal that would have helped the Patriots the most, or the deal that he thought was going to make him look right the most when you looked back in history?
I mean, really, just quickly, like when we talk about it again, think of that. He sent Garoppolo to San Francisco to make himself look good.
Yes.
What a freaking loser. What a tool.
And also spite the Crafts a little bit. Oh, this is what you want? All right, this is what I'm going to do, right? Totally Bill Belichick. Do we have on this Memorial Day weekend a Gasper or Murray experience tomorrow?
Chris is in. No shot you'll see me.
Yeah, I'm in tomorrow with Dundero. I will be putting my Mike Felger hat on. I will be broadcasting remotely from one of my residences.
Oh, okay, attaboy. That's how it's done, Chris.
Via the Cape House. Nice.
You're getting with the program. All right, we look forward to listening. Have a good weekend, Chris.
Later, Chris.
All right, guys, take care.
Okay, we have an hour to go here or less. 55 minutes to go on Agenda Free Friday. There's no commercials here, just an update from Jim. And the final hour is your calls. Smoke them if you got them. Call them on whatever you want. We're right back to you after this. Again, no spots.